Well, spring is in the air and Mother Nature's starting to loosen her grip. If there was any fly that I would pick for this coming spring to fish for steelhead in the Midwest, it would be my Hub's Simple Stone. I developed this fly a number of years ago. It's pretty simple to tie and it's great to fish under an indicator, or you could even bounce it off the bottom, chuck and ducking, or you could even fish it Euro style with like a jig head. It's a pretty simple and effective fly. For the hook, I use a down eye Nymph hook. This is a 1X long, 1X strong hook. I usually tie this in a number 6 or a number 8 would work well too. For thread, I'm using black ultra thread. I pretty much use this for all my stuff, as you've probably seen if you go to my YouTube videos. It's tough and strong, and you can use it for a lot of variety of flies, as far as streamers all the way to egg flies, and it comes in a lot of different colors. So what you're going to do is we're going to start towards the eye of the hook and get a good thread wrap, working our way back. That's key when tying any fly, is you really want a good thread wrap. So when you cinch your materials down, you're not going to get a lot of spin. So for the tail of this fly, I use black goose biots. If you've ever seen a stonefly nymph, they almost have antennae coming off the front of their head and then in the back, which is their tail. And this fly works really good in the spring because you'll start to see little black stones actually as the water warms up on all our Midwest rivers that have a rocky bottom or a gravel bottom. You'll start to see these flies emerge and pop onto the surface. And even some days into late April, early May, you will actually have a chance to fish to some rising trout. So I take 2 of these, and what I do is I just kind of cross them up and make them even, like so. And then I lay them on the top of the hook, and I'm just going to wrap them and cinch it down. So it just looks like a little tail protruding out the back of that stonefly net. And the Pure Marquette River actually has little black stoneflies. We have a variety of different stoneflies. We have the big golden stones, and we even in the summer will have big Terra Narcissus stoneflies. Then the next step, what I'm going to do is I'm a big fan, this fly has a lot of copper with the black, and when it comes to steelhead and fishing any of these Midwest rivers, I'm a huge fan of black and copper. You'll see me put it in my swing flies and my trout flies, especially on the Pure Marquette. When the river starts to get that tannic stain to it, you just can't beat black and copper. It's such a great color. So what I'm going to use for the rib is, this is just ultra wire, medium, and a copper. And what you're going to do is just get a strand, and I would recommend when you cut this to use either old scissors or some type of wire cutter. And you don't need a long strand. You're just going to use this as the rib of the abdomen for the nymph. So I'll just straighten this out and I'll lay it in the back, and I'm going to wrap it down really good. So when I pull on it to wrap it, it's not going to pull out. Like so. And then for the body itself, I'm just using black UV ice dub, and I just get a chunk of it, and I'm going to basically taper it so it looks very insect-like, and I'm just going to taper the body into, when I'm going to stop about here towards the thorax of the throat. So I don't use a dubbing loop because I'm going to try to put it on basically from going thinner to thicker. And you can put wax on your thread. Some guys do that. I just tie so many flies that I don't really do it, because what will happen is eventually your bobbin's going to get full of junk. And then it's going to be difficult to get your thread through if you have to replace the color or try a different thread. So just like that. And then I'm going to wrap and pull it tight. And you can see how it's getting thicker towards the front. And I want to stop it right about here. And then I'm just going to wrap it off. And then what I'm going to do is take the wire and I'm just going to space it out and just make a little rib. Like so. You can see how I have it spaced. And I'm just wrapping it light. I'm not pulling it super tight. Just like that. And then I'm just going to wrap it off. And then same thing, either use an old pair of scissors or some wire cutters and just snip it tight. It'll go even tighter because that'll cut your thread. Just like that. Pretty simple step. And then next what I'm going to do is grab just a couple of copper flashabou. You don't have to go too much. And I'm just going to set it on top and tie it off. And a stonefly is a crawling nymph, so it actually crawls out on rocks before it emerges, so it has a pretty distinctive wing case. And before it pops its wings, it's kind of almost like a shellback when you look down on it. And what I like to use is Swiss straw, so I'm going to use some black Swiss straw for the top of its wing case. I like Swiss straw because it almost, I think, in a way, it floats your fly a little higher into the water column and actually makes it look like it's an emerging nymph because it floats. It's very buoyant. So I'm just going to tie that like that, and then eventually I'm going to pull this over and then have the copper too for added a little bling to it or a little color to it that would hit when the sun's shining or whatnot. And then what I'm going to do is just add a little more dub to this. Just kind of wrap it around, just like so. And then I'm going to stop here, and we're going to add what would technically be the legs of this nymph. And I like to use, this is just a black hen saddle. You can see I'm kind of running out because I've been tying a lot of these stoneflies for my upcoming steelhead season. But you just want to pick something, you don't want too long of fibers because it's just going to overcrowd everything. You just want kind of the smaller piece of it, basically. So we're going to find one. Here's a good one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie this in by the tip. I'm just going to stroke back a little bit so I get that tip right there. And I'm tying it down with the shiny side up. You can see the feathers kind of dull, almost matte on the bottom. A little shinier hue to it on top of it. So we're just going to tie it in. Tip first, give it a few wraps. Snip off the excess. And then we're going to add a little bit more dubbing to it, just so we cover up that little bit of stem. And then we're just going to wrap that a few times towards the front of the hook. Kind of move it back with your fingers, just like so. And I like to use the thicker part of the feather. Once I start seeing like the soft part, that's when I want to stop. Because that's just going to collapse when it gets wet. This stuff will move a lot, kind of like a soft hackle type wet fly. And then I'm going to trim it, and then just kind of bring it back again and pull it all back so you get some life into it. And it's got shoulders, that's why you want to really taper the body so it's thicker. So then when you wrap that, it gives a little bit of shoulder in front of it. And it'll really get those feathers to move in the current, and it just makes it look lifelike and look like legs. And then I'm just going to put a little more dubbing in front. Kind of now we're up to like the head of the fly. Just kind of build up a little bit of a head. Just like that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of pull these feathers so they're a little even on both sides in the middle here, like so. And then we're going to pull our Swiss straw over. So this would be our wing case. And we're just going to tie it off at the tip. Just like that. So that would be the wing case of the nymph. And then we're going to take these couple of strands of flashabou, just to add a little bling to it. And we're just going to pull it tight. And I just give it a couple cinch, and then you can kind of move it around too with your fingers so it sits right on top. Just like that. And we'll tie it off at the head. Fluff it out a little bit. Another secret you can do in doing a lot of nymphs is just a little piece of Velcro on a pencil, and you can fluff that. Almost like pick it all out, basically. And then what I like to do is I like to take just a little bit of UV clear glue, or you could take even probably head cement, and I like to put a little bit over that wing case, and that kind of gives it a glossy finish so the light will catch it really well, and almost looks like a shell or the nymph back. So I just do a little dab, don't go overboard with it, and then just let it dry, and it'll kind of give it a glossy tight finish and kind of bring out that copper flashabou too. So yeah, this is the Hub Simple Stone. Pretty easy to make, and it's very effective, especially in the spring. Usually March all the way through the first part of May, this fishes really well. So when I rig this fly under a strike indicator, I like to fish it at the bottom, so I'll have like an egg fly above it. One thing too, a good tip is as you're finishing your drift, always let your rig swing out a little bit, because the trout and the steelhead, you'd be surprised how many times they'll hit this fly as it is starting to come up into the water column, especially when the water temps are warm, like mid-April, early May. Because you would be surprised how many fish will actually take this fly as it's starting to come up into the surface, looking basically like a stonefly crawling out like the real thing. So